All right, hi everyone. Welcome to Chapter 2's practice problems. This is going to be the first in a series of videos where I have a separate video with the lecture and with practice problems. I'm going to show you 5 problems from the book throughout the chapter, and then show you how that's going to relate to your problems of the week. Your actual problem set will be in a file that has 5 problems listed on it. I've got each of them separated into tabs. It has the name of it as well as the name of the problem based on the data set that I've already imported. You won't have to import all these data sets from individual files into your sheets this week. Those are already done for you. And then what I've done is everywhere that you'll have an answer that needs to be answered, I've kind of highlighted it and put a border around the cell. And that's how you'll be answering your problems. There's 5 problems this week that you'll do. And so we're going to start with the practice problems. This first one starts on page 24, I believe. I've got the ebook, and it looks like this number is at the bottom of each page, but it could possibly start on 23 if you have a physical textbook. I'm not 100% sure, but sorting and filtering data in Excel is the name of the header you're going to want to reference here. So what we have are sales of automobiles from 2011 and then 2010. So this is the most recent year. You've got to really look at the file of the data because, for example, in your actual problem, it's got the current year on the right and the previous year on the left. So, make sure you're taking a look at that, because how you make your formula to calculate changes in percentages is going to be based on current and previous year, and the order in which these appear might not always be uniform. So the first thing it asks us to do is to calculate the change in percentage. So basically, whatever the difference is between those is then divided by last year's amount. What I mean by that is if we take the current sales for these Honda Accords and subtract the sales from last year, we've got a difference. Eyeballing it looks to be about 4,500 cars difference. And then we take that amount and divide it by last year. That tells us the percentage and change year over year. Here's what that formula looks like. Because of order of operations, you need the numerator to be in parentheses here so that it calculates that first. So you're going to type equals. Every formula or function in Excel starts with the equals symbol, and then you type it out. So I'm going to open my parentheses, and I'm going to click on current year minus previous year. And then I'm going to divide that by the previous year. And then I'm going to hit enter, and we get a percentage as a decimal form. You can see in the book it says equals D2 minus E2 in parentheses divided by E2, which is the exact formula that I've typed in here. Now, please note, your actual problem this week is set up not with raw numbers, but rather with percentages. When there's percentages already, so this is current year on the right, previous year on the left, typically what people do is just take the difference because there already has a percentage, and they say the difference in percentage points, not true percentage. So you don't need to do current minus previous divided by previous for your actual problem, but you do need to know how to do that for future problems. In this case, the change in percentage column that you have here is it's fine to just do this minus this as a change in percentage point. So 94.8 minus 88.4 is perfectly fine. That's the answer that I'll be looking for. That's the way that the book has it set up to look for. So once we've done that, once we've done the difference of previous year and last year and divided it by the previous year, we're going to want to change this into a percentage form. Is the way it's displayed. So we're going to click on it once and then click this drop down and change it to a percentage. We get 15.44%. And from here, we can drag this formula down to the very bottom. And we're able to do that because this reference and this reference are going to stay the same all the way down. There are some cases where you're going to want to lock in particular cells so that they don't shift when you shift a formula down, but this is not one of them. In this case, we want it to be this minus this divided by this cell all the way down from the 1st to the 20th number here. So I'm just going to click on it one time, and then the bottom right, there's a little square, and if I highlight over that, my cursor changes from a white cross to a black cross, and when I click that and drag it, it it brings it down with me. Now you'll notice this very bottom one, it's giving us an error. That's because you can't divide by 0. So this is a divide by 0 error. And for this one, we can just delete the formula that's written there, and I'm just going to put 0 and change it back to general. There is no percentage change. We can't calculate that. And the reasoning given was that the Ford Fiesta wasn't offered the previous year, so there's no data to go off of. All right, from here, we're going to keep following along, and we're going to start sorting our data out. So we're going to select all of the data, and we're going to sort it from largest to smallest based on the 2010 sales instead of the 2011 sales. So highlight all of our data all the way from A1 to F21, and we're going to click on sort and filter, and we're going to click on custom sort. And we're clicking on custom sort because if I just did smallest to largest or largest to smallest, it's going to default to that first column. So custom sort, I want to make sure that this my data has headers boxes checked, and that'll make sure that it ignores the data in the top row. It only uses that information to label it. And then we're going to sort by sales March 2010. You can see if I didn't have headers in that top section, it would just default to column E, column D, column C, which is what is done in column F because I didn't label that when I made those percentages. But we want to sort it by columns, which is column E, which is sales March 2010, and it asks us to do largest to smallest. So I click OK, and there we go. I'm going to go ahead and type percentage change into this spot. And I'm going to click on wrap text at the top to where it fits, and then percentage we don't want on 2 different lines, so we're going to drag this over just a little bit until the entire word percentage fits. All right. Proper formatting is going to be key to this class. On a lot of assignments, you're going to be graded for how you lay out the structure of your Excel file. Stuff like that, where the word is split between 2 lines, you're going to want to adjust. That'll be looked at as far in terms of the grading, because being able to visualize your data is very important as an analyst, or if you're trying to get information across, it needs to be very easily readable to your audience. All right, back to the practice problem. So we continue on, and it's going to ask us to filter out everything except for Toyotas. We want to display Toyotas only. So I'm going to select all the data. I'm going to click on sort and filter up here. Filter. Once filtering is on, now I can filter whatever I want out. There's a down arrow next to manufacturer. I can unselect the select all button and then scroll down and select Toyota. And that's how I could display all of it. So that's how you would filter out certain data if you wanted to just display your Toyotas only or Chevrolets only or whatever else. If I were to click sort and filter and then uncheck the filter button, it would remove all the filters completely and go back to how it was. All right, the next step, I'm going to go on to the next page, and this is going to be conditional formatting. So in this one, I'm going to sort it back by the 2011 sales. Pardon me. And we're going to look at that percentage change of sales, and we're going to have it highlight anything that's negative differently. So I'm going to go ahead and select my data once again, go to sort and filter, custom sort by 2011 sales to get back to how it was. And now anything where the percentage of change is negative, I want that to display in red. I want to be able to easily show that. So I'm going to select my data and then click on conditional formatting, highlight cells rules, and I'm going to say less than, and the number I'm going to give is 0. I want everything less than 0 to show a light red fill with dark red text. If I wanted to show a different color, just red text only, or if I wanted to do a custom format, I could click on custom. I could maybe make it, black text and then fill the color with red if I wanted to. Whatever you want it to display to make sense, but I'm just going to do the light red fill with dark red text as the default here. I click that, and now I can see anywhere where the change is the same, where it's negative, it all is displayed in this red color. So that's what's going on with this one. But now I want to do it where it's showing the percentage change in sales, where anything high is showing just how much higher of an increase it was, and anything lower, it shows a larger or smaller bar along with those percentages. So for this one, what I can do is I could either do the exact same formula in a separate cell. So I could copy this to here and then make the exact same formula. If I copy this text and paste the text here, it'll do it. If I were to just copy it over, what'll happen is that it's shifting the cell. It's shifting to these two cells instead of these two cells. So, you know, however you want to do it, you could just redo the entire formula. I could move this box over, move this box over, move this box over, and we get 15.44% again. That works too. Or you could just retype the entire thing. Copy this all the way down. We get the same thing, but it's also copied over the conditional formatting changes. So what we want to do is highlight these cells and then do a different conditional formatting. And this one is just called data bars. We can click on whichever one we want, whatever color we want. This top left one is the one that the book uses. So just to match that coloring, I can go conditional formatting, data bars, and then this gradient fill up top. Solid fill would not change the shading based on how high it was, but this one does. And that gives you a better indicator of where it's extremely high or extremely low. This is a huge increase, and you can see the data bar is big. This one's more than 100%. The data bar is big. Very small increase of 2%. Still blue, but the data bar is small. So that's how you do those bars there. And I think we're going to move on to the next one, which is going to be our sodas. Yeah, our soda files here. I didn't label it, but that's fine. We're going to go to soft drinks. Soft drinks is the name of this file. Soft drinks. Okay. And this one starts on page 30, I believe, possibly 31. I mean, possibly 29. I'm really not sure if you have a physical book what it looks like, but frequency distributions for categorical data. Categorical data meaning we can't do math to, no, I just highlighted this green on accident. That's fine. We can't do math to the word Sprite or the word Diet Coke. So we're just going to do some analysis by looking at a frequency chart. We're going to make a frequency chart here. So when it's just a frequency chart and we have data that we want to use, the bins that we're going to separate these into are just going to be the names of these sodas in this case. So we're going to start by just kind of hunting for all the different names. So for example, we've got Coke here. I'm going to just copy and paste that. Control C, Control V, or Command C, Command V if you've got a Mac. All right, we've got Pepsi here. We've got Sprite here. We've got Diet Coke here. We've got Dr. Pepper here, and those are the 5 ones. Let's see. Is there one more? No, I think that's it. So we've got soft drink here, and I'm going to maybe underline that, center it. And then from there, we've got frequency. So how often does this appear? So with categorical data, we're not going to do the histogram or the frequency chart here. I'm sorry, we're not going to use a frequency function. Instead, we're just going to use a COUNTIF function. So COUNTIF function, if you're following along, says to do equals COUNTIF, and then select the range of cells, and then click on what you want it to find. So I'm going to arrange this. It's interesting, the data file says Coke instead of Coca-Cola, but the book has Coca-Cola written here. Coca-Cola, Diet Coke, Dr. Pepper, Pepsi, and then Sprite in that order. So that's how I'm going to rearrange them. Frequency. So what we're going to do is a COUNTIF. So I'm going to start typing COUNTIF. I see COUNTIF in the drop down here. I can double click it. It asks me to find the range. The range is going to be every cell where I want it to look for something. And if I want to copy this formula down to another cell, for example, when I do this one on Coke, I want to do it again for Diet Coke, Dr. Pepper, and so on. If I'm going to copy this down, I don't want this range to shift, because if I move downwards, it's going to move this range down one to where there's a blank line, and then it's going to move it down again. So right after I select the range, I can press the F4 button on my keyboard. If you have a laptop or a MacBook, you need to hold the FN key, the function key on your bottom row, and that will change it to where you can click F4 on the top row, and it'll do the F function instead of changing your brightness or your volume or whatever the shortcut is on a laptop. But if you're on a desktop computer, you just press F4, and you can see these dollar signs. A dollar sign before the letter locks in that column. A dollar sign before a number locks in that row. Dollar sign before both will lock in the absolute reference of that cell. So from A2 to B26, no matter where I copy and paste this formula to, it's always going to reference that range. Comma, criteria. What do I want to look for? Now, if I have a cell that already says Coke right here, I can just click on that cell. As long as it's spelled correctly, I don't have extra spaces before or after the word. I can just click on that cell. If I wanted to define a specific word or lettering, I could open a quotation mark, I could type Coke, and it would do the exact same thing. But in this case, because I copied and pasted it from my initial list, I can click on Coke here, close my parentheses, and hit enter. And what has happened? Why didn't it? This is bizarre. Why is it showing my formula and not actually doing it? Pausing the video for a second and resuming the video. So on your formulas tab, somehow I had accidentally pressed the shortcut for show formulas. That shortcut is Control and then the tilde button. So I must have accidentally bumped that in some way. So Control that, and it was just showing the formulas on this sheet. I'm sure that happened. Back to the frequency table. So all right. So count if, that's your range, and then that's the criteria. You want to find the word Coke. Hit enter, and then I can drag this down. And now we have the frequency of all of these items, 19, 8, 5, 13. This is basically a tally sheet of every time I found Coke, Diet Coke, etc. in that table. And that's all there really is to it as far as when you have qualitative data. Now you can look at the percentage afterwards. So what we'll do is we'll do the percentage frequency. So I'll just write, if you're going to do a formula like percentage and you don't want it to start trying to calculate, or if you want it to show an equals or something, if you push the just a single quotation mark before you type any text that you don't want to do a calculation for, and it'll just do text only. So I'm going to write percentage frequency here. And what we want to do is we want to know what the so this is the we want to do relative frequency first. So the relative frequency and then percentage frequency. All right, perfect. So the relative frequency is going to be how much of this is out of the total. Now, relative frequency is going to be just delivered as a decimal point. Percentage frequency is the same thing in percentage form. And in fact, actually, I think we can go ahead and skip that line, because in your actual problem, you're going to do frequency as a whole number and then percentage frequency. So yeah, I'm going to skip the relative frequency option. I'm just going to put percentage frequency, and we're going to do the total. So what we need to know is what's the count, what's the sum of all these numbers. So in this spot right underneath, we're going to have a total line. And on the total, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to align that so that it's offset, and maybe the soft drinks all left align. And our total is going to be the sum. So equals sum. We're going to add up all these numbers, and we get 50. And there are 50 total inputs here. If I highlight all these and I look way down here in the bottom right, I see count 50. So perfect. The percentage frequency is going to be this number out of 50. So what I can do is I can do equals 19 out of 50. And I want to copy this formula down again, but I want it to shift to Diet Coke's frequency, Dr. Pepper's frequency, but I don't want this total to change. So I'm going to press F4, again, function F4 if you're on a laptop or MacBook. and it's going to do 19 out of 50 and then 8 out of 50. It's not going to move that 50 reference. So hit enter, and before I copy it down, I'm going to hit my drop down and change this to percentage. Now I'm going to drag it down, and I get the relative frequency. And as a percentage form, this total should be, actually copy it one more time, we get 100%. So 50 out of 50 is 100%. And this just gives us an idea of how popular any of these sodas are. So, 38% of all the sodas chosen were Coke, 26 for Pepsi. So you can see any kind of cola is more popular than any of the rest of the types. Diet Coke is the only diet on this list, so that's the next most popular. And then Sprite and Dr. Pepper are tied. So that's that when you have qualitative data. Now let's look at the same thing, but with quantitative data. So this is the audit sheet that starts on page 32. The first thing it asks us to do is, on this one, we have determine how many bins to use, what the width of each bin is, determine the bin limits. Okay, so the width of each bin is going to be variable based on a feel, anywhere from 5 to 20 bins. There's a small amount of aisle of items, so 5 or 6 bins are going to be used. In this case, there are an N of 20. They've chosen 5 bins, so we'll go ahead and follow that same suit. As far as what the width of those bins is going to be, if you take the largest data value minus the smallest data value, whatever that number is, and divide by 5, because it's the number of bins we're chosen as 5, you get 4.2. But we want that width to be a little bit bigger. We usually round up on this, and that's going to make sense what I'm saying here in a second. But basically, the audit times, we're going to use a width of 5, and there's going to be 4 bins. So we're going to have five rows, and then the width is 5. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, that's the first one. And then 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, that's the second one. That's a width of 5 on that. So let's go ahead and start making this formula. We're going to making this table. So audit times, I'm just going to write audit times. And then we want the, what do we call it? The bin upper limit. So this is not in the book, but when we're using Excel, we want the bin upper limit to be listed separately. So I'm going to write bin upper limit. Actually, you know what? I just realized I need to be zooming in on this a little bit more for you guys. I'm sorry if you couldn't read those first ones as well. Zoom in a little bit more. Zoom in a little bit more here to show you what I did. In case you missed any of those formulas, you couldn't see it exactly. There they are. And same thing here. I guess, well, that one probably should have been able to see that one because it was just options, but frequency count here, and then what that formula looked like here. Couldn't read it. All right, so audit times bin upper limit we want on here. We want frequency, and then we want percentage frequency. And in this one, we are going to make these a little bit bigger. We're going to create these audit times as a spread. So basically 10 to 14 is what they've got set up. We're going to copy that 10 to 14, 15 and 19, etc. When we do that, we can't just write 10-14 here, or it's going to try to turn it into October 14th. So as I was saying, do a single quotation mark, 10 to 14, and then it'll treat that as text. And then 15 to 19, 20 to 24, 25 to 29, and then 30 to 34 are our bins. The upper limit of each, so basically whatever number is on the right here, that's going to be 14, 19, 24, 29, tried to autocomplete that for it, and I didn't hit enter, but that's the upper limit. And now we can look at the frequency of each. So what I can do is with the frequency option, and you can see here they're using the frequency option in the book here, equals frequency of this. I'm going to select this cell, I'm going to type frequency. The data array is going to be all of where the data is coming from, which are these cells, comma, the bin array is going to be right here. These 5 are the bins, 14, 19. It knows to look for that or lower and in between these bins. I'm going to close my parentheses. I'm going to hold Control Shift and press Enter. And then I can drag that down to the bottom. That didn't work. I didn't lock it in. Let's redo that one. Equals frequency, the data array, comma, the bin array. And actually, I'm just going to press Enter instead, and it's going to fill it in for me. There was a better way to probably do that, but that just will copy it all the way down for me. Percentage frequency is going to be the this number out of the total. So since I don't have a total field here, the way that the frequency table fills it in with the how many are left over spot, we could do the total right here instead. So this is going to be equals the sum of these. Now I can do equals this cell out of this cell, lock in the 20, change this to a percentage, drag it down to here, and we get our totals. We don't want to do that one. We get all of our frequencies, and then we can now create a histogram. So histogram is this chart where the bins are butted up right up to one another. So this one, we're going to need the data analysis tool pack. So I do have instructions for how to download that, but let's just show you in case you haven't done it. So we're going to do file and then options. And from here, I'm going to click on add-ins. So add-ins, and then manage Excel add-ins. I'm just going to click go for the Excel add-ins. And now I can check all the ones we're going to want to use. And because of the other things we're going to use in this class, go ahead and check everything except for Euro currency tools. We're going to need the solver add-in later. We're going to need both of these analysis tool packs. So check all 3 of these boxes and then hit OK. I've already done it, so I'm not going to click OK. But once you click OK, they just appear. Now that we have these, we're going to click on data analysis, which is in the analyze section. And from data analysis, we're going to choose histogram. Okay. So again, this is starts on page 32. You can follow along with all of these steps. We're going to go to data under analyze. We're going to click on data analysis and then histogram. There are some ranges already listed here. I'm going to change those because that was from a previous problem. But the input range is going to be this entire section right here on this problem. All of the inputs. And actually, I'm going to click on all of these because there's a header, a label. The bin range is going to be the bin upper limits. Again, there's also labels on that one, so I'm going to select the word bin upper limit. The output range is wherever I want this to start displaying. On your problem itself, I've told you the exact cell to click within the sheet, but I'm just going to put it right here on this one. And then you're going to click chart output. That's going to give you a histogram output as well. Don't click on Pareto or cumulative percentage. We don't need those for this. Click OK. I thought that might happen. All right, so let's go back. Let's go ahead and take off the labels. We'll just do the input range here, and then the upper limits here. All right, so here we go. We get the bins and the frequency, and then we get a histogram. Now, as it's going to tell you in this, we need to eliminate the gap on the histogram because the histogram doesn't have gaps in it. So we're going to click on any of the columns and then click on Format Data Series. So We can right click here or double click on any of these columns and we get this format data series option. You want to make sure that all of these are highlighted for that to work. So if you click off it and click it back on it, you'll see format data series. And then this will look a little bit different in your, if you have a MacBook, you have to click on format at the top on a MacBook. You can't, I think, double click to get to this pop up. It's going to be listed here, I think. Maybe chart design. It looks a little bit differently on a MacBook, but on PC, you'll just click on that. It'll pull up format data series, and then this gap width, you need to change that to 0. But then you'll also need to change the border. We want to add a line around each of these so you can actually see the difference. And then the color cannot match. You can't have a blue color line with the blue section. So change it to black or any other color that will show the difference between those lines. Now we've got a histogram that basically matches this frequency bin histogram, and you'd be good on this one. So that's the audit, that's the histogram. Again, make sure that you adjust the gap width and draw a line around them as well. That has to be done to get full points there. Home sales starts on page 46. So I'm going to jump to page 46 on the book here. One second. Sorry, I'm just flipping through the ebook here. All right. So there's some variability measures we're going to want to know, and some really easy ways to do those. I'm just going to show you those formulas real quick. We want to be able to calculate 4 in particular for your problem. Those are mean, median, variance, and standard deviation. So real quick, I'm just going to set these up for us. The mean, you're just going to type in average, not mean for some reason. And then the average of the home prices. Okay, hit enter, done. Median, that one actually is median. So type in median, select all of them, and you're done. Variance is going to be equal variance, and you're going to do variance of a sample, because this is a slightly different formula when it's a sample. These aren't population, which is P, because population would be every single house in the state or in the neighborhood, right? These are some samples of home sales. These are 10 home sales in this area and the prices. So slightly different formula. So we're going to do variance of the sample, and the numbers are going to be just, again, right here. Hit enter. That's the variance. And then the last one is going to be standard deviation, and that is going to be equals ST dev sample, and select all of these and hit enter. And that's all there is for this one. So that's a real quick one. The formulas are all you need to know. You don't need to do the math on paper for this. Now, mean and median, that's going to be something you need to know how to do for your quiz. But again, mean is just average. You add all these up, and then because there's 12 inputs, you divide whatever you get. You add them all up and divide by 12. That's the mean. The median, you line these all up from high to low. So I could, if I wanted to find it myself, I could line these all up, smallest to largest. And then from here, I could look at the 2 middle values, which are these 2. And because these 2 are, there's an even amount of inputs, I have to average these 2 out. So if I do, if I were to add these 2 together to do this on a calculator, I would just take the calculator and I would type in 199,500 plus 208,000, and then divide by 2, because there's 2 inputs. So anytime there's 2 medians, you just average them out and you get 203,750, which is the same answer we got here. Variance, very complicated. We have Excel, we don't need to calculate that the long way. Same with standard deviation, we don't need to do that the long way. So that's all of home sales. Let's look at bottled water. So on this one, this starts on page 56. Let me jump ahead to page 56. and we have outliers, box plots, measure association. Okay, so in this one, we're going to be inputting a scatter chart. And we want to know basically the relationship between two things. As it gets hotter out, do bottled water sales increase? Let's find out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to go to insert. I'm sorry, I'm going to select all of these, not the titles though. I'm going to go to insert, and I'm going to click on this little chart with the dots here. So select just the data, and then click on this one. The very first one is a scatter chart. With a scatter chart or any generic charts, you always need to retitle it. So this is going to be, we'll call it temperature versus bottled water sales. Sure. We also need to add, so add chart element. Again, if you're on a MacBook, you'll have to do add chart element here. This shortcut doesn't appear. We want to do axis titles. The y-axis is going to be our bottled water sales. So bottled water sales in cases. And then our x-axis is y, temperature, degrees Fahrenheit. And then let's get this centered. So that's a titled chart. We can see some indication that as temperature goes up, the sales are going up. If we were to resize this a little bit, we might see that a little bit. Yes, make it a little shorter. We can see that a little bit more, that it's going up on sales as the temperature is going up. If we wanted to know the covariance or the correlation coefficient and what those mean, you'll need to look up, because that's actually an answer for parts B and C this week as to what those indicate. But those are just a simple formula. So covariance is equals covariance of a sample. The first array is going to be the one on the left or right. The next one's going to be the one on the left or right. With covariance, it doesn't matter. Hit enter. We get this number. What would that mean? You'll need to know what positive or negative covariance would mean. Correlation coefficient, how you find that is CORREL. And the same thing, you do one and then the other. You will need to read in your book what this means. What a 12.8 on a covariance might mean, what a 0.93 on a correlation coefficient might mean, because that's exactly what you're going to be asked to answer when you do the scatter chart for these profits of these companies versus market capitalizations. So look in your book for those terms, covariance and the term correlation coefficient, to be able to answer those questions in your book. But that's how you do the work in Excel. And unless I've done the math on a calculator this week, you're not going to be asked to solve it manually. This one is just a tally mark. If you wanted to find the frequency, I could just look for every instance of Coke and make a little line. So for the quiz, that's how you would do this one. You would just, count how many times Coke appeared, Diet Coke appeared, and then what the total was, 50. And then on a calculator, you could just do 19 out of 50 is 38. 0.38 is 38%. You just move the decimal point twice. 8 out of 50 is 16%. So that one can be done without Excel in that manner. The audits, this is the same thing. Frequency chart, as far as tabulating it, would be the same. Being able to interpret what this histogram is showing as far as skewness goes, what that would look like as far as skewness goes. And this is answered. If you follow along with this practice problem in the book, it is answered what this skewness shows, what this variance and standard deviation might mean. All of that's answered in the book if you follow along. So that's it for this video. If you have any questions, email me throughout the week. Please do that. Don't don't not ask. If any of this wasn't clear or anything you'd like to see on the next video differently, please let me know and I can adjust accordingly or answer those questions for you. Thanks, everyone.